And now that the 87th annual parade is over, the cleanup has begun. Hollywood Boulevard is still closed, and you'll notice all of the trash left behind. Perhaps the third try will be the charm, because the first two have been a bust. Would you stand up to President Trump if his policies were in contrast to California law?
Again, my mission is to fix California.
It's a yes or no question, would you? Hi, we're with Channel 2 and Channel 9. We want to talk to you about your pension. Mr. Cavazos. A half dozen past and present officers have come forward with allegations of department cronyism, rule bending, and more.
Grabe esto para comprobar que realmente hablo español, por si acaso que hay aquellos que tengan duda.
I have thought of nothing else.
She doesn't want her face shown or her real name used. We've also disguised her voice.
I have been sad and outraged.
But this woman, we'll call Mary, has been in the news for the last year.
Questioned myself, how come I didn't know more?
She is one of 4 social workers fired after 8-year-old Gabriel Fernandez was beaten to death, allegedly by his own mother, Pearl Fernandez, and her boyfriend, Isauro Aguirre, last May. Gabriel was left in their custody despite call after call alleging abuse. Now Mary is speaking out for the very first time.
Do you think you let him down, or that you share any of the responsibility?
No. Well, I want to say no. I believe no. I'm sure that would make people unhappy with me, but, you know, I did the best I could with what I had.
We wanted to know why the system didn't protect the little boy who loved Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and whose teacher proudly wrote he's getting an award for reading. So we took the LA County Department of Children and Family Services to court to get the file. Hundreds and hundreds of pages of horrifying details. In the hours before his death, Gabriel lay in an emergency room. His skull fractured. He'd been burned, apparently tied up. He was missing skin. He had BB pellets lodged in his lung and scrotum. Even the soles of his feet were bruised and swollen. A physician in the emergency room said someone has pulled out this child's teeth, and it was not a doctor, not a dentist.
I just thought over and over again, how did this happen?
Mary was not the social worker who investigated the reports of abuse, including the complaints from Gabriel's own school. That social worker was also fired. Mary got the case after, when the family was referred to therapy. She says she never saw anything troubling, but on one occasion, Mary spotted a bruise under Gabriel's eye and a BB pellet in his chest.
I asked them about it. And the explanation from Gabriel, brother and sister and mom, her story was that some little kid in the apartment complex, his mom got him a BB gun, and he was shooting everything, and he, turned around and shot Gabriel. I'm not trained to like an investigator like with the sheriff's department or the FBI that know how to interview, and they can see how people lie to them.
Mary's casework shows attempt after attempt to reach Pearl Fernandez. When she did interview the family, in her notes, Mary wrote, "Mother feels overwhelmed with her own emotional pain," then went on to say, "Fortunately, her boyfriend is a positive influence on Mom, and he gets along well with the children." That's the same boyfriend who would later be charged with Gabriel's murder.
Is there anything in hindsight that you now say, oh, I should have known?
I have to say no. I don't know what else I could have done differently, because I'm being lied to. They're good. They were good at it.
Mary was no longer on the case when Gabriel was killed. She'd closed her part of the file 3 weeks earlier after the family refused to continue counseling. She does admit to one mistake, a mistake that got her fired. She didn't document all the details of her visits.
I'm not excusing myself for not documenting well. I mean, I did this job for a long, long time. And you get back to the office and you have 15 phone calls. And your statistics are due, and did you see all your kids?
After 17 years with the department, Mary is now unemployed, bankrupt, and in danger of losing her home. She agreed to talk to us to make this point. She feels there are too many cases, too much paperwork, and not enough time, and says she and others who were fired were overworked, undertrained, then scapegoated.
We don't get supported, we get accused, and it feels like they don't care. That's the tragedy of the whole system.
I don't think that we would be ever trying to scapegoat any of the employees.
We took her claims to DCFS Director Philip Browning.
The new training program does incorporate law enforcement in that.
He says the department is also hiring 450 new staff members to reduce caseloads. We asked how so many people could miss the signs. He said he can't comment on specifics of the case or personnel issues, but did speak generally.
If all of our workers will use common sense, critical thinking, and accept accountability, I think we'll have much better outcomes.
4 people were fired, so do they all lack those 3 things?
Well, in this specific case, as you know, I can't get into the details.
In the weeks leading up to his death, a security guard called police, not believing Gabriel's bruises were caused by falling off his dirt bike, like his mom stated. The sheriff's department tells us a deputy went to the home and said he didn't find any evidence of abuse. The file suggests it was never reported to DCFS.
This was a tragedy, but I did not kill that little boy. I don't feel guilty. Well, I do feel guilty. I can't help it because even though the job was killing me, I liked my job.
In Palmdale, Cristy Fajardo, CBS 2 News.
Pat and Jeff, this story is especially important because the LAX police force is responsible for protecting one of the world's busiest airports. Back in June, we told you that now former Assistant Police Chief Brian Walker admitted to misdemeanor tax fraud as part of a plea deal in proceedings tied to the corruption case of the former police chief of the Port of Los Angeles. Since then, a half dozen past and present officers have come forward with allegations of department cronyism, rule bending, and more.
Absolutely, there's a culture of cronyism.
At LAX, several officers tell CBS 2
I felt betrayed by my own department.
some of the department's top brass are bending the rules, even breaking the law, and keeping their jobs.
You got to get your 3rd strike before you get your 3rd stripe, meaning a sergeant.
Marshall McLean is with the union representing officers at the airport, but fearing retaliation, others would only speak to us if we protected their identity.
1 or 2 people that have been protected, or?
I think it's in the double digits within the last 10 years that just disappear and come back because they've been in trouble.
Are these people that should keep their jobs?
No, absolutely not.
We tried to talk to Assistant Police Chief Brian Walker about these allegations, but he wouldn't comment. We learned just hours before the CBS 2 News investigation was set to air, Walker resigned. This internal memo sent to LAX police officers late Monday afternoon confirmed his resignation. Officers also point to another situation involving Assistant Chief of Police Ethel McGuire. She has an impressive resume, including a career at the FBI. But CBS 2 has learned in 2013, state regulators sent a letter to the chief saying her appointment didn't meet state law because she lacked the peace officer standards and training or post. That's when officers we spoke to allege the department bent the rules again, changing her position to that of a manager, not a sworn officer.
Having post-certification is not something that she has to have in order to have that position.
Was it when she was hired?
I'm sorry?
Was it when she was hired in 2010?
No. To the best of my knowledge, no.
So we actually have a job listing from 2010 that shows, that clearly states all candidates must be post-certified.
Oh, I don't know anything about that.
This was the photo on McGuire's bio until we started asking questions. It has now been replaced by a picture of her in civilian clothing.
I think that's unfair.
Unfair because this former detective says the department was unwilling to make any accommodations for him after his ex-girlfriend accused him of domestic violence and got a restraining order that barred him from carrying a firearm.
I love working for the department. I love working for him. My lawyer and I simply asked him if we could put me in a different section of the Los Angeles Airport Police. Maybe security, maybe traffic, where I didn't have to carry my weapon to do my job. I was denied that.
And even more puzzling, multiple sources say the Internal Affairs lieutenant who oversaw his case was put on paid leave, accused of having a relationship with the former detective's ex. An accusation bolstered by this email to his attorney from the LA County DA in the case, saying the victim stated she started dating the Internal Affairs lieutenant after the domestic violence incidents. They met during the Internal Affairs investigation.
Myself and my attorney believe that he was coaching her through my trial.
He says that cost him his job because he was convicted on a misdemeanor domestic violence charge. As for the Internal Affairs lieutenant, he also resigned hours before our investigation was set to air. In a statement, the department said it takes all allegations of misconduct seriously and has a process to investigate complaints. The statement also suggested the union was trumping up charges and filing complaints, later discredited by independent investigators.
I felt betrayed by my own department. It's too late for my case, and then for other officers to be protected.
But these officers want the Inspector General to come in, saying it's time someone else investigate the department.
We need to find out how deep this rabbit hole goes.
On September 26th, the now former Assistant Police Chief Brian Walker is scheduled to be sentenced for misdemeanor tax fraud. He faces up to a year in prison. The department also has a new police chief, David Maggard, who has been on the job less than 2 weeks.
He's known as Santa Ana's $500,000 man, but we've learned the new city manager, David Cavazos, is really more like the $750,000 man, drawing close to $800,000 combined in pay, perks, and a pension between two cities this year. Outraged Santa Ana residents
It's a slap in the face to the people of Santa Ana.
accuse him of gaming the system.
It might be legal, but is it right?
This is how his pay breaks down. Cavazos is receiving a $315,000 salary from Santa Ana, making him one of the highest paid city employees in the state. It's the same salary he received before retiring from Phoenix, a city almost 5 times the size. But that's not all. He's also collecting another estimated $243,000 in perks and benefits his first year in Santa Ana, including a car, moving expenses, and a housing allowance. Now add his pension. This is a voicemail we received from the city of Phoenix in response to a public records request.
The number that is public record, that is David Cavazos' pension, is $234,536.04.
All told, nearly $800,000. We wanted to talk to him about it.
He respectfully declines the interview.
That was the reaction we got when we went to his office for answers. So we waited for him.
Mr. Cavazos, hi. We're with Channel 2 and Channel 9. We want to talk to you about your pension. Mr. Cavazos!
He wouldn't acknowledge us. In fact, he sped away in his city-owned car. But when we caught up to him at a city council meeting, he admitted he'd seen us.
I have a car that's provided to me. It's an electric car. You saw it the other day.
It was here that he finally agreed to talk to us.
No one's questioning the legality, but some people are calling it unethical.
We have the highest ethics. I did comply with the contract. I was paid according to the contract, so it's absolutely very ethical to do that.
That is true, but many city leaders in Phoenix have been quoted as saying they feel duped. Amid a hiring freeze, they gave Cavazos a $78,000 raise. They said it was implied he'd stay. Instead, it just increased his pension. Less than a year later, as soon as he qualified to cash in on his retirement, he bolted and took a job in Santa Ana.
I didn't come here for the money. I didn't leave there for the money.
Cavazos says he worked for the city of Phoenix for 26.5 years, 4 of those as city manager. He insists he earned every penny, although he misstated his pension.
My pension is about $125,000.
Not so. Remember?
$234,000.
Cavazos boasts he hasn't taken a sick day in 10 years. But critics say that's not so noble when you learn he cashed in $199,000 in unused sick time and other perks to almost double his pension in Phoenix. It's a practice known as spiking.
Would you advise the city of Santa Ana to close similar loopholes for their employees?
You know, I'm a big supporter of pension reform. When I was the city manager and actually had the opportunity, I recommended pension reform. And it's going to save $600 million in Phoenix, and I'm very proud of that.
But it didn't save any when it came to you. I mean...
Well, I did tremendous work in Phoenix.
He does have supporters who argue he would have been a fool not to collect as much money as the system and his contract allowed. And his new boss, Mayor Miguel Pulido, says he's glad to have him.
Some people are saying he gamed the system.
He did a very good job in Phoenix, and I think he's entitled to what he's entitled there. And now he's doing a good job for us here, and I stand behind him.